extremists to be inducted within the fold of the Congress. So that is going to be the Lucknow session. Now, my dear friends, in the Lucknow session, there were two important incidents that happened. One was the extremists, they were readmitted within the fold of the Congress, and second, it is going to be the particular a pact with the Muslims. Second, it is going to be the pact with Muslims. Okay, the pact with Muslims. Now, what do I mean here? See, just try and understand. When we talk on the political parties, the INC, it was created in the year of 1885. Now, the British knew that the INC, it was a pan-India political party. And the British also knew, means after some years, after the initial formation of the INC, the Britishers, they started having a critical attitude towards the Indian National Congress because of the demands that were being put up by the Indian National Congress. So when the INC, okay, when the particular INC started putting up such demands, the Britishers, they understood that if the INC keeps on continuing like this, it would lead to the strengthening of INC, that would lead to the strengthening of Indian nationalism, which would be a threat for the British rule in India. So that is why the Britishers, what they did is they started creating counter narratives against the INC. That means they started projecting INC as a Hindu organization, and they started supporting counter to INC, that is the people who did not like the INC. For example, they told that the INC is a Hindu organization, but in reality it was a secular organization. There were people who belonged, the social composition of INC, it varied, it included people from various religions, Sikh, Christians, Hindus, Muslims. However, there was a domination of Hindus. Domination, that means the majority of Hindus were there. But it was not a Hindu organization, it was means all the people were there, people belonging to all the faith. But the Britishers wanted to create a narrative. So they supported the counter INC aspects. Now, over the time period, what happened is that there was one another party that took birth. That is going to be the Muslim League, that considered itself the representative of Muslims in India. Now, as soon as the Muslim League got created, the Britishers understood that now there can be divide and rule. So the Britishers started favoring the Muslims. The Britishers started at one point of time favoring the Muslim League. Now, like the INC had extremists and moderates, similarly, even the Muslim League was a political party, so it will also have the extremists and moderates, the moderates being the older nationalists and the extremists being the younger nationalists. Now, what had happened is that over the years, there was a sink. By the time period of 1915-1916, there was a sink between the Muslim League's personalities and the INC. And that is when there is an agreement that is going to be created. So there are certain causes for the pact to happen between the Muslim League members and the INC. Now, what were the reasons? The first one is going to be the refusal of the British to help Turkey in the post-Balkan Wars and the Italy Wars, because Turkey was defeated in these wars, and because of these wars, Turkey had to lose many things. But why was Turkey important? Turkey was important because there was the idea that in Turkey there was the Khalifa. Khalifa is considered to be the religious head of the Islam, who at that point of time resided in Istanbul. So it is similar to the for the Christianity there is the Pope, for the Islamic there was the Khalifa. So because Turkey lost and Turkey had to face a lot of disrespect, and the British refused to help Turkey. So the Muslims in India, they felt that what are you guys doing? You are ruling over India, which has sizable number of Muslims, and you are not willing to support their religious head. So that is the thing that oppressed the Muslims in India. Moreover, the annulment of Bengal partition, the some of the Muslim sections, they wanted the Bengal partition to be there. They wanted a separate area for Muslims, but the Britishers cancelled it, again creating hatred against the Britishers. The INC was hating the British. Because of these reasons, the Muslims also started hating British, because of which an enemy's enemy is a friend. In that context, the common enemy was British. So they came together, INC and Muslim League people. Then third, it was to set up Aligarh University with affiliating powers. But the Britishers denied that also. Then there is going to be the government repressions during the World War and the negative impacts of World War. It was not like the World War, it had negative impacts only on Hindus or only on Sikhs. No, it had negative impacts on all the people. So that is one, another aspect. Then there was the younger members, the younger league members, they also resorted to bolder forms of politics like the extremist. So they were extremists. The younger ones, when we are talking about bolder form of politics, it means passive resistance and the extra constitutional methods. And now the Muslim League also had the goal of self-government, that is Swaraj, just like the Congress. So these are the reasons that led to the coming together of the Muslim League people with the Congress. However, this particular thing is going to have certain positives and certain negatives. Okay, certain positives and certain negatives. All right, now what is going to be the positives and the negatives? Okay, here the positives and the negatives, it is going to be that of the pact that was signed in the Lucknow between the Muslim League and the INC. Okay, so what are the positives and the negatives? The positives are that because of this pact, it represented a serious desire to allay minority fears of majority domination. Because up till now, the Britishers, they banked on the idea that there was a Hindu majority and all, minority would be facing issues and everything and of that sort. But because of this particular pact, the Muslims understood that the Congress and that the majority will not suppress the minority. Moreover, it created large enthusiasm within the people. However, it also led to the acceptance of separate electorates. It led to the acceptance of separate electorate. Now, what was the idea of separate electorate when we are talking here? So, the idea of separate electorate, it was that consider two things. Okay, consider one example, that is reservation. Okay, so when we are talking about reservation, just understand that, for example, if there is a seat and that particular seat is reserved for a scheduled tribe personality, okay, one particular area that has a seat reserved for scheduled tribe, and there is going to be 40% of scheduled tribes, okay, 20% of Hindus, 20% of Muslims, and 10% of others. So here, what generally happens in the reservation system is that only a person belonging to the scheduled tribe would be able to contest the seat, and the people who are who are having their names in the electoral rolls of that area, they would be eligible to vote. Now all of the people belonging to all the religions who are mentioned in the electoral roll, anyone above the age of 18 years would be eligible to vote. So that is the aspect of reservation. Reservation only happens at the seat level, not at the voting level. But when we talk about separate electorate, when we are talking about separate electorate, so if that particular seat is reserved for one particular, if that seat is reserved for Muslims, okay, for example, if that seat is reserved for Muslim, okay, Okay, if that seat is reserved for Muslims, just a moment, okay. If that seat is going to be reserved for Muslim, 40% of that 40% of that area has a Muslim population, 30% has Hindu, 10% has Sikh, and 10% has others. Okay, so if that seat is in the separate electorate, if that seat is reserved for Muslims, only a Muslim person could contest on that seat. However, even in the voting process, only the Muslims would be eligible to vote. That means only 40%, for example, only 40% would be eligible to vote in the for that seat. The remaining 60% would not be eligible to vote for that seat. So in reservation, only the seat reservation is going to be there, but in separate electorate, even the voting is going to be reserved. So that was the idea that was there. Then it also led to the evolution of two nation theory. That means India and Pakistan, and also leaders, they came together, but togetherness of the masses of both communities was not considered. So this is how the Lucknow session is going to have two of the important pacts of that point of time. Okay, so my dear friends, this is going to be all for this particular session, and I shall be seeing you in the next session, wherein we shall be discussing another yet very important topic for the UPSC. Okay, and here whatever we are trying to do, it is going to be in the context of UPSC mindset. Okay, the UPSC derived mindset, what the UPSC expects from you, we are generally doing the history in that particular context. So with this, I thank every one of you for watching me, for watching Civils 360. I'll see you up in the next session. Take care everybody, stay safe, thank you, and Jai Hind.